Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Orlando Magic Pod Squad. Dante Marchitelli, George Galante, David Steele, and Jeff Turner. And we are pleased to be joined by former Magic point guard Chris Corchiani, kind enough to join us. 3 NBA seasons, 8 seasons overseas, an NC State legend. But most importantly, Chris, George Galante and myself are just more excited to have a fellow Paisan on the show.
I love it.
That was the first thing my wife said to me this morning, Dante. She said, "Who are we having on the pod squad?" I said, yes. Chris Corchiani. She goes, "Ooh, an Italian." And I went, "That's right. That's right."
That's awesome. We're excited to catch up with you. I know Magic fans are as well. But I guess, Chris, just kind of take us back to your time here in Orlando, that year and a half, 91, 92. That you were here. Some special memories for you. Love to hear your thoughts on kind of your first couple of years here.
Yeah, though it was short, it was very memorable. And I was drafted in the second round, the 36th pick, and I knew it was going to be difficult. They had 3 point guards that were all fully guaranteed: Moreland Wiley, Scott Skiles, and Sam Vincent. And I went to training camp, and I mean, to be honest with you, I had a horrible training camp. Everything was moving so fast. And I try to tell people, when you go from middle school to high school and high school to college, and until the game slows down, it's difficult. And I just didn't play well in preseason. And I remember Matty Gukas calling me in and saying, "Listen, I appreciate all your effort and everything you did, but we're gonna have to let you go." And at that point, I stopped and I said, "Coach Gukas, what do I have to do in order to play in this league? Give me some insight. I really want to work hard." And he told me, he said, "No one that I've ever released has kind of taken that approach. He gave me a long list of things. You're too slow. You can't shoot. But I
that doesn't sound like Matt. That doesn't sound like Matty at all.
Not at all.
No, I played for him for 4 years, and he said the same thing to me from the very start.
Well, Jeff, you were slow, but you could shoot, though. That's the difference. I had two strikes against me.
6'9" helped too.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
true.
So I went back and I played with the Raleigh Bullfrogs. It was a minor league team, and
right.
Really was enjoying it. And had a good time. And then all of a sudden, it was funny. I got a phone call from my agent, and he said, "Listen, you're being called up by the Orlando Magic, and not only are you being called up, you're going to start your first NBA game." And I honestly thought it was a prank. I was like, this can't be true. So I ended up flying out to Denver, and I met the team out there. And I remember getting off the plane, and I had to go right to McNichols Arena. And when I got there, they didn't tell me where to go. So I tried to go in the front door where all the fans are trying to get in. And all of a sudden they're saying, "Listen, there's this short little guy. He says he's playing in the game tonight. We need to get security down here. This guy's nuts." So I finally got in, and they said, "Listen, we're just going to run a couple plays. We're going to go pick and roll here, and throw the ball to the wing and bury yourself in the corner." So ended up starting my first NBA game. My only start of my career was my first game. And it was just a wonderful experience from there forward. I had great mentors, Jeff and Scott, Mark Akers. It was really, really fun when you had veterans take you underneath the wing. And it was a very, very wonderful experience for me.
Chris, can I step in here? Because, two guys on this
stage, right?
I got to set the stage. I mean, this is my 33rd year. Chris Corchiani, what he did that day, there's probably 2,500 games I've done. There's maybe 15 that I remember. I mean, really remember. And right. This is one of them because of what Chris was just talking about. It's just vivid memories. The team was beat up, had, I think, 7 available players because of all the injuries. The week before Chris signed, the team signed Stephen Thompson, who played, I think, 1 game for the Magic and then was gone, and Anthony Bowie, who wound up having a really nice career in Orlando. And that was just to have 8 guys available. And then they had released Moreland Wiley. So Skiles and Vincent were both injured, and they bring Chris in. And I knew Chris from Hialeah, Miami Lakes. Dante, you didn't mention he's two-time Mr. Basketball in high school in the state of Florida.
Right,
one of the best high school players in the history of the state of Florida. So I knew about Chris because I had been at Florida. Norm Sloan tried to recruit him, and I've heard Norm's stories, about how close he came, and you can verify that or not, to getting Chris Corchiani. But I knew all about Chris. So he comes in, and in this game, we had lost 15 straight. All right. So we're looking at setting an NBA record for the most consecutive losses because we got 7 or 8 guys. Now we got Chris coming in who hasn't played an NBA game, and he's in our starting lineup, and it doesn't look very good. Well, this game in Denver, we're right there at the end. Do you remember this, Chris and Jeff? You were at the free throw line, JT. We were down 4. You made a free throw to cut it to 3, and then you intentionally missed the second free throw. Somehow the ball got kicked out to Chris. Chris, do you remember this? At the top of the arc, you shot a ball, and I thought it was a 3. I remember broadcasting. I thought the game was tied, but your toe was on the line.
Oh, no kidding.
Only gave him 2, and we lost the game by, I think they hit an by the way free throw at the end. But it was a memorable game. It was a memorable scenario. Chris almost hit the shot in his first game that would have sent it to overtime. JT, you played all 48 minutes. I looked that up. You never came out of that game.
He didn't foul out.
Did not foul out. It was a really nice game.
That's
way
nice.
to go, JT. Awesome.
It's just,
when there's only so many players, right? And they can't take you out. Yeah, you're not taking any of those hard fouls you would normally take, right? Now you're big time, right?
Jeff was a smart player. He knew he was getting a lot of minutes, which means he was going to get a lot of shots. So
that's right.
No silly fouls. But it's funny, David. As I've gotten older, my memory, I don't remember anything, but I vividly remember that game and late in the game, kind of making it and saying, oh my gosh, and then only getting the 2 because my foot was on the line.
David, my recollection, David, though, is had Anthony Bowie and Stevie Thompson had not played in a game, right? That was their first game as well.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So think about that, guys. We've got 3 guys coming in that really had not played for us, and they were part of the 8. The one thing, Chris, that I remember is you talked about we're just going to keep it. Maddie said we'll keep it simple and we'll run some things. I remember at the shoot around after we had gone through our stuff and everything. You and I stayed a little bit longer, and I think Skiles was there too. And just talking about, wing pick and roll, Skiles, taking us through it. JT's going to set the screen. Here's what you're looking for coming off. And we just did that over and over and over. That was that's one of the things that we ran. It's just pick and pop, not pick and roll. It's JT we're talking about. I don't roll. I pop.
Not a roller.
It didn't take me long to realize you weren't rolling to the bucket.
Now you mentioned Skiles being a good mentor. I would think Skiles could, as knowledgeable as he is, I would think he could be hard on younger guys too. But was there a balance? What was it like learning from Skiles and also getting to know him?
I didn't know what to expect. I always had a great respect for Scott, when he was in college and in the NBA, and he was actually one of my favorite players prior to even getting to the Magic. And when I got there, I didn't know what to expect, and he really took me under his wing, and he helped me and mentored me, and he was a real student of the game. I mean, he would tell me tendencies of all the players, and I was impressed with how smart and how much work he did off the court in order to prepare. But he was so very helpful. I don't think he was threatened by me, which is a good thing. So he was just always there, trying to give me a hand.
Chris, what made the game finally slow down for you? You said that was a big problem when you first, got to camp and so forth. What made the game finally start to slow down for you and you to feel comfortable?
I ended up settling into a nice role. And that's the one thing, when I think of Matty Gukas is, I played in every game that I ever dressed with the Magic, but I knew I was only going to play, 8 to 15 minutes a game. And I had a role. When I went in, I tried to pick up and create tempo. And I think they kept things very simple for me. And, that's what kind of slowed the game down. And I knew exactly what I was going to do each night. I wasn't going to play 30 minutes, and they weren't looking for me to, come in and score. It was more really playing to my strengths. And, like I said, it was good. We had a good little run there for a while, and very enjoyable.
Yeah, you got in that game that we broke the losing streak. You played in that game at Seattle, I recall. I think I know Vincent was back because Sam basically won the game for us to break the 17-game losing streak. I think he shot 18 free throws that night, but you were there for that one as well a couple of nights later.
Yeah, there was a number of games that kind of come to mind, and I remember I think it may have been in my second year when the Orlando Magic, I don't believe had ever beaten the Chicago Bulls in Chicago, and we went there, and I remember late in that game, I hadn't played a whole lot, and I got put in the fourth quarter, and it was tie score with about 20 seconds to go, and for whatever reason, I was in the game, and with about 8 seconds, the ball ended up in my hands, and I drove to the bucket, and I got fouled with 3 seconds, and it was tie score, and I stepped up and made both free throws to go up 2. And I remember, they called a timeout, and I was like, please let the game end just like this. I know my career is not going to be long, but this will be something special to hang my hat on. And I remember the ball came into Scottie Pippen, and he shot, desperation shot right around half court. And to me, the ball took about a day and a half to get there. And I was just praying all the way along, and it kind of ricocheted off. And that was the first time that I believe the Magic had ever won, in Chicago. So that was a fun night as well.
I was going to say, Dante and George, just for, I guess, context, Chris, our new coaching staff led by Jamal Mosley, they have a bell in the practice facility, and they ring that bell when guys make winning plays, taking charges, the extra pass, just, those hustle plays and everything. So just for Dante and George, if Chris was on the team, if we had a bell back then, it would be ringing quite a bit. That's
nonstop ringing,
because that's just the way he played. He made those kind of plays. So
yeah, well, I appreciate that, Jeff. That, again, knowing your talents and what you're capable of doing. I just tried to do whatever I could to help the team win. And a lot of times that was just hustling and trying to take a charge and knowing not to take up any shots for the other 4 guys out there.
Chris, you're very, very humble. He had over 1,000 assists. He's talking like
he's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's talking like is basically
he was the NCAA leader in assists when he left North Carolina State. So it's okay, Chris, to be humble there. We appreciate that, but you were a terrific basketball player, and then after the NBA, you spent 8 years in Europe and had a really nice career overseas. You and your wife traveled and saw the world, and that must have been a great experience too.
It really was. I spent 3 years in Italy, 3 in Spain, 1 in Germany, and 1 in Turkey. In Turkey, we ended up adopting a street kid that lived there. He was 10 years old, and all we did was work in what they call a buffet. It's like a little store downstairs, and we got to know him, and he didn't go to school or didn't do anything, and we adopted him. So I went over there for 8 years and played and brought back a kid with me. So
Chris, how does it, but don't gloss over that either, because I was going to bring that up. I had read the story about it. How does that come about? That has to be a long conversation between you and your wife and obviously him.
It was interesting. He was a kid that didn't speak any English and worked every day. I mean, wore the same clothes every day. He had a family, but they had put up 2 of their other kids for adoption. They just had, they weren't in a very good financial position. And the goal was to take them with us to Italy the following year. And we were going to teach him English for 3 months. And then he could go back to Turkey and get a much better job, being bilingual. And after 3 months, he didn't want to leave. And I said, listen, I signed up for the 3 months. I didn't sign up for the long-term deal, but I lost that battle, and we ended up adopting him. He stayed with us overseas. We put him through, school while we were there. And now he's back in Raleigh and doing well.
That's amazing. Amazing story.
That's a great story.
Really, really good story. Now your sons too, they are playing college or have played college ball, including Chris Jr. went to NC State. How did he get the 13 out of the rafters though?
Well, interesting enough, at NC State, we've got about 15 jerseys that are in the rafters, and I'm fortunate enough to be one of those. But we have, of those 15, 14 are honored jerseys, and there's only one retired, and that's David Thompson. They set the bar extremely high. Get your jersey retired, you have to win a national championship and be player of the year. And that's something David Thompson did back in '74. But so my son played there for 4 years, and it was a great experience. My second son went to the University of South Carolina and walked on there with Frank Martin. And Frank and I grew up together in Miami, so I've always had a great relationship with Frank. And they just enjoyed being around the game. And my son at South Carolina, that's the one you really need to have on the podcast, because the stories he can tell you about Frank Martin, it's hard to believe. But so they've had a nice career with that. I have a daughter that goes to the University of Alabama, and then my youngest son is a senior in high school.
You played on some incredible NC State teams, the team that should have won the championship in 1989, but we won't go down that road. But you're playing with the great teammates that you played with, and Charles Shackelford and Gugliotta and Vinny Del Negro, all led by Jimmy V. I mean, playing for Jimmy V must have been a thrill and an honor for you, Chris. What can you tell us about your experience with him?
I tell you, he was just so special. He had, obviously charisma, and he was on the cutting edge of everything. This was back when, a lot of coaches didn't have any endorsements, and, he kind of led that charge. He was on Johnny Carson. This is well before any coaches were on any talk shows, and but just being around him, what was amazing. He was the kind of guy that, you see certain guys that walk into a room and they try to capture everybody's attention. And Jimmy V just had a knack. He had an infectious laugh. He was a great storyteller. And I truly feel he was an underrated coach. He would always change defenses. And, our preparation probably wasn't as good because he was so busy doing so many other things on the outside. But you got him in a game, and his saying was, if you keep it close in the last 4 minutes, I'll win the game for you. And you ended up believing in everything that he said. And, I guess the biggest thing about Jimmy V is, people know about his flair and his charisma, but he was the most intelligent person that I would ever was around. He knew a little bit about Shakespeare and, all the different wars and the stock market and opera. He was so well-rounded and versed on so many different areas. And that's the thing that, his life was cut short, that a lot of people didn't get to see just how special he was outside of basketball. And, his legacy now is probably bigger than it was while he was living. And, I just feel very honored that basketball has been so special to me, and it's put me in front of so many people. And, having the opportunity to play for Jimmy V was probably the best experience that basketball gave me.
That's Great.
Now you grew up in a family of basketball coaches and players. Your father, right, was your high school coach at Miami Hialeah Lakes, and had a tremendous record there. How did you not wind up, Chris? I want to ask you. We want to get into what you're doing now, but how did you wind up not making a career out of the game of basketball in coaching or in some other form?
Well, first of all, I always say is, when I finished playing, basketball coaches weren't making a whole lot of money. If I would have known how much money they're making now, I would have at least tried that lane. No, when I finished playing, I again played 2 years in Orlando and one with the Celtics, and then 8. I had played 11 years, and I was really traveling every year. I wasn't fortunate enough to be like Jeff Turner, who was in one place for a long time, but I was ready to settle down, and I had an opportunity to be an assistant coach for Eddie Biedenbach at UNC Asheville right away. And I wanted to get into business, and I wanted my kids to kind of have roots in one place. And I knew that if I got into coaching, I was going to be, a couple years as an assistant here and there. And I basically did that for 11 years. So I just kind of planted my roots in Raleigh, and I've just enjoyed Raleigh, being around the school, and kind of led my way into the business world.
I don't blame you. I think that's a good move. If I was Chris Corchiani, I'd be as close to Raleigh as possible too. I think that's you can't go. I would imagine tremendous.
Do you pay for a meal in town, Chris?
Exactly.
Pay?
It's funny, George. Years ago I didn't, but the older you get, a lot of these
They tend to forget.
It's the damn millennials, Chris. I tell you, that's what happens.
On. They're not forgetting Fire and Ice back in Raleigh. Come on now.
What's interesting?
Rodney Monroe, right? Was it Rodney Monroe?
It was Rodney. Yeah.
Yeah.
I stay in touch with him. Rodney sends Tom Gugliotta and I a text every day with a prayer. So it's kind of our way of staying in touch. I joke and I say he probably knows I need it a whole lot, so he does it every day.
How is it watching your kids play? Do you find yourself? I'm always fascinated if you're up and vocal and really into it, or you sit back reserved, or what's your vantage point when you're watching your kids play?
Dante, I've never enjoyed it.
Okay.
I just never enjoyed it, and I was the father that sat back, didn't say a word. Even after the games, if they wanted to talk about it, I talked about it. Being in Raleigh, they had a lot of pressure on them, and people would say, are you like your father? And so I really tried to kind of downplay all that, and always supportive, always there for them, but like to kind of be in the background, with that. And I got so nervous that it really wasn't enjoyable, because I wanted them to do so well. And they were, very nice players, especially at the high school level. But no, I was not one of those vocal fathers that was getting on them or getting on the coach. I really tried to take a back seat there.
So you should have done what I did, Chris. My girls, they refused to play basketball for that very reason. But they got into soccer and volleyball, which was great because I had no clue what was happening in the game and everything. So if you don't know what's going on, you can't get nervous about it, right? You just
that worked out well. Yeah, they were like, we're gonna pick a sport Dad doesn't know anything about.
Exactly.
Smart girl.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, girl. Well,
so what are you doing now, Chris?
Yeah, what are you doing now, Chris?
What are you involved with now?
Well, I got into real estate right when I was finishing playing, and ended up, I was at an NC State basketball game, and a guy came up to me at halftime and tapped me on my shoulder, and he said, "How would you like to buy a mortgage company?" And I turned to him and I said, "I'm at the concession stand. I want to buy a hot dog right now, not a mortgage company." I ended up buying his mortgage company, and I ran that for 8 years and sold it about 6 years ago. But I had a title insurance company that was running alongside the mortgage company, and 2 weeks ago I just sold that title insurance company. I've got to work for 3 more years, but So I've been in the real estate kind of world, you know, in the North Carolina area.
See, Dante,
That's
I would
great.
think that would be, if I lived in Raleigh and I bought a house from Chris Corchiani, I'd be telling everybody
Exactly.
everybody I know. That would
Exactly right.
be amazing.
You know, I've told a lot of players, and NC State's been great to me, and they allow me to come back and talk to the team. And I try to tell those guys that their biggest opportunity is staying in the area because they're known. You know, in basketball, even if you're not a starter, in the Carolinas, it's a craze. Everybody loves, you know, Carolina, Duke, or NC State. And I say your best opportunity is staying in the area. Don't go back to Vicksburg, Mississippi, where there's not a lot going on. And it's been fun to see some of the younger NC State players that have gotten into business, and I love mentoring them and helping them. But yeah, there is some advantages and perks to playing there and taking advantage of your name. And you know, I wish that I had that NIL stuff, you know.
Yes.
No doubt.
But yeah, no, it's been a great experience being there.
What are your
Chris, do you
thoughts on
keep up?
the state of the game today?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you keep
Jeff
up with the
and I
NBA game? Do you watch it? And what are your thoughts?
I know
on
you're a
how
big
it's
college
played?
fan, right?
Yeah.
Big college fan.
I love college, and obviously I go to all the NC State games. I'm a big NBA fan, and you know, I'm a huge Magic fan. You know, I had such a great experience in Orlando, and the opportunity that they gave me. So I'm a huge Magic fan. You know, the college game, it's different. The kids nowadays, you know, they're pampered at such a young age. So, but when they get there, it's different. But the game, you know, it's obviously changed. There's great athletes, and you know, to be honest with you, I was a 6-foot point guard, and you look at a lot of rosters now, you know, on the collegiate level, you know, the point guards now are 6'3", and they're great scorers, and they're playing above the rim. So the game, I think, has really changed, you know, from 35 years ago, and you know, just great athletes, you know, but it's still a fun game. I still love the NCAA tournament with the, you know, you lose and you're done. But you know, the NBA is fun. It's fun seeing the younger players transition and you know, take over the league. So it's been a good experience.
As
Chris,
great as you were in high school, can you imagine playing at a time when there's the social media, Twitter, you know, I mean, can you imagine if two-time Mr. Basketball in the state of Florida in a world of social media would have been insane for you?
Yeah, that was you know, again, you know, not having that, I'm happy and blessed, because I mean, there's so many distractions now for these kids. And you know, I remember, you know, we would read the paper, and that was kind of everything.
Yeah.
You know, the Orlando Sentinel would kind of tell you how you were doing. But you know, with these kids nowadays, with you know, social media, and the ones that are reading it, you know, they're getting bogged down, whether somebody's saying they're doing great or not, or it's just another distraction that I'm thrilled that I didn't have to put up with, you know, back in the day.
You know, and I got to think, Chris, when you were on the bus trips, right? Weren't you talking and telling stories? Now everybody's on their phones, right?
Yeah.
And you got a lot of that. Think about, right? I imagine you guys told some great stories sitting on, then you get Shaquille O'Neal, right? You're listening, you're laughing. I imagine there were some great bonds that were built with your teammates without social media.
Yeah, no question. I remember playing cards, you know, on the bus. I forget what game it was called, but David and Jeff and
Liar's Poker.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
A lot of Liar's Poker.
Hopefully you guys are still playing that a little bit, but
We gave it, unfortunately, that was a Bobby Weiss introduced that to the group, and that caught fire, and we played a lot of that back in those days.
I do remember that. I remember being on the losing end of that quite a bit, but no,
Akers was the worst liar.
Not as much as Akers, though.
Akers was the worst liar.
Speaking of Akers, you know, one of my most memorable kind of memories of the Orlando Magic was going on road trips. And I was the rookie. I think Jeff and Scott, they called me Rook. I don't even know if they really knew my name. But the beauty
Jeff
of
didn't, just so you know, Jeff didn't today either. I had to remind you. I'm kidding.
We would go on these road trips, and we'd get to a city, and Jeff, Scott, Mark, some of the other folks, we'd go out to these nice restaurants. And again, I didn't have two nickels to rub together. And my job was to get the cab. This is before Uber. So we'd be in the restaurant, the bill would come, they would all take care of it for me. But Rook had to go get the cab. So if we were in Milwaukee, I'd be out there in the 10 degrees weather trying to hail a cab. But I didn't have to pay for the meal. They always picked up my meal. So
that's awesome.
The memorable moments of going out and being around those guys.
I think because you joined us mid-season, you really didn't have to sing or anything like that, did you? I don't remember. Too much hazing going on other than the cab rides.
Yeah, I don't remember too much hazing, but yeah, the cab rides. That's what I always hoped that they were going to pick a restaurant that was close to the hotel, so that was more expensive than the meal. But
yeah, that's right. That's right. Now we have to pay for Jeff's meal and get the cab. That's right. That's the deal.
Yeah.
That's the deal that he has.
Jeff was always one of those guys, just always able to figure it out. There was always an angle away. But
he hadn't changed.
I always tell people I made good money while I was playing, and I still got it all.
I can believe that.
I still got it all. Now, I got to imagine, Chris, my wife and I went to Italy for our 1-year anniversary, and they saw the name Marcatelli. They started speaking Italian, and they were crushed when I didn't know the language, right? So I imagine, did you pick it up pretty quickly? And I imagine a Corchiani playing in Italy was pretty popular.
I was fortunate in high school, instead of taking Spanish or French, I took Italian. So I had a good little background with that. My great-grandparents spoke Italian in the house, and so I picked up that as well. So when I went over there, it did come very easily to me. Unfortunately, I went from Italy to Spain, and then I picked up Spanish. So now when I go over there, it's kind of a mixture between Italian and Spanish. But like Jeff said, I know enough to kind of be able to order food and get around. So that's been good. I ended up getting my Italian citizenship, and that was very beneficial, where I had dual citizenship. So when I went over there after a couple of years, I was able to play as a Italian player, and I didn't take up one of the 2 spots that was filled by the Americans. So it really gave me a little bit of longevity over there playing.
Now that's all changed. It's just completely open, and a lot of the teams are made up of many players from different countries. What city were you in over there, Chris?
I was in Siena. I was in Treviso. I actually played with Tony Kukoc before he came to the Bulls. And, my story there with Tony was he was so excited and he wanted to get to Chicago, and he was chomping at the bit. And we were playing Kinder Bologna in the championship. And the way a lot of contracts are structured over in Europe is you do have a base salary, but it's very incentive laden. And if we would have won the championship, it was going to be more than my whole kind of year's salary. And Tony didn't want to play. And Tony checked out, and we ended up, losing the first couple games. And I said, Tony, listen, I know you want to get to Chicago, but I got a lot of money riding on this, and I got a family.
Yeah.
Ended up winning the next 2 games, and he was miserable and didn't want to be there. And we got beaten the 3rd, and he left on the first flight in the morning to Chicago. I said,
oh boy. Chris, I remember Daryl Armstrong played overseas before he arrived with the Magic. I remember one story he tells about a game in Greece. I think it might have been the last game he played there, and somebody set the building on fire, and there was smoke everywhere, and just the crowds were just crazy. Did you have any crazy incidents like that playing in Europe at that time?
Absolutely. It's barbaric. I mean, a lot of people, when I was in Turkey, I played for a team called FS Pilsen, and I didn't realize the history between the Turks and the Greeks. And so when a Turkish team plays a Greek team, it's much more than a basketball game. It's going back in years, and family members have been killed in wars, and you play, and they're constantly throwing things, at you during the game. And
Wow.
I was trying to tell them, listen, I'm an American. I'm not Turkish. I just happen to be playing for the enemy. But it really is, there's times where it's very dangerous, the things they throw. And, those games, again, it's very deep rooted. I've got a quick story about Darrell Armstrong. Darrell was on the Raleigh Bullfrogs with me, before I got caught up with the Magic, and Monty Tao was the head coach. And Monty Tao tells this story better than anyone, but I was the local hero that went to NC State, and, in Raleigh, in order to sell a few tickets, I had to play. And Darrell kept going to Monty, he was my backup point guard, saying, why am I getting no playing time? And Monty said it was the most difficult thing to tell him, listen, wait your turn, this and that. He said, Darrell was so much better than me, but I was playing 48 minutes. And he said it was very, very hard to tell this guy,
wow,
listen, Chris is playing well. And he said, I wasn't even, no comparison who was better, but I had to play you. So it was funny. And to think that he was my backup and then had a, amazing career, many years with the Magic.
Wow. I had never heard that story.
I didn't either. I bet
That's wonderful.
Awesome.
What we know about Darrell, I bet he made your life miserable in practice, didn't he?
I say the one thing I could do is kind of get the ball up the court.
Yeah.
And there's two players that I could never get the ball up the court against. And one was Darrell Armstrong and the other was Muggsy Bogues. And it was just a nightmare. And that was the one thing I took pride on. Listen, I can figure it out and get the ball up the half court and get a team in the set. But those two, were just amazing. I remember playing Charlotte, and Coach Gukas said, "Listen, give the ball to Nick Anderson. Let him bring it up when you're in the game." Because Muggsy was right there.
That's
Awesome.
Fantastic.
And Darrell was a North Carolina guy too. Now
Yeah.
Darrell was a Gastonia, North Carolina.
Fayetteville State.
Yep.
Did you play with Luis Scola too? Did you win a championship with him? I think about that. He's still playing. I mean, you must be absolutely amazed by that. What do you remember about him?
When I was in Spain, we had a tremendous team. Luis Scola was about an 18-year-old, but just a tremendous talent. Fabricio Oberto, who ended up playing with the San Antonio Spurs for a number of years, was on the team, and Andres Nicioni, who played a number of years. Those were all, they were 18, 19 years old, and we ended up winning the championship in Spain. And we had Victor Alexander that played with the Warriors for a while, and Elmer Bennett was a tremendous European player. He had a few cups of coffee in the NBA, but yeah, that was amazing. Those three guys to see where they were and then what they did, when they went over to the NBA was just fun to watch them.
All right, last thing, Chris, because I got to get your thoughts on this. With all that you've accomplished and as terrific a point guard as you were, when you see that position now at this level with the likes of Steph Curry and James Harden, I mean, what do you think what goes through your mind when you see what is asked of the point guard position now?
Fortunate for me, I was the backup point guard, so a lot of times I matched up against the backup point guard. Having to chase those guys, I mean, what those guys do night in and night out is just amazing. And every time I watch a guy like Curry, it's like I keep saying, is he that good? Can he do that again? It's amazing. And again, I mentioned earlier, these guards are big and strong, and there's not a weakness. I remember playing against Mark Price, and I don't think Matty could get me out fast enough, because a lot of you would pick your poison. You say, okay, this guy's not a great shooter, and I'll give him a step, or this guy is wanting to do this. But a guy like Mark Price back in the day, it didn't matter if you were up on him, he was going to go around you. If you were behind, he's going to knock it down. But every player now is just so talented. It's amazing, the progression over the years of that point guard position it's different. You had point guards back years ago that really were what they call playmakers. Nowadays, a point guard position is a scorer. Yeah. And, so that has changed dramatically.
What's the maddest Jeff ever got at you when you didn't give him the ball in the right spot?
Yeah, Jeff wanted the ball. I will tell you that. Jeff was very into his shot. Like you said, when he was picking and popping, if he was open, he certainly would. Hey, you missed me that time, but that's great. In all seriousness, Jeff and Scott and those guys, they you get to certain teams and you're on your own. And Jeff, the reason I lived in Winter Park was because Jeff and Dee Dee, they were so helpful. And, I was so fortunate. And a lot of that is why I still really embrace the Magic, because the experience, not only with the fans, but with the team and, was really special. And you don't get that, every team you get to, doesn't welcome you and help you and mentor you. And I was very fortunate to have some veterans that really did a wonderful job.
You'll Chris, never Dante, be forgotten either, Chris. Congratulations on your career, basketball and business.
Hey, real quick, I just want to get your take on this. Dante interviewed Jerry Reynolds at our last game, and Ice kind of referred to David and I as a couple of old pieces of furniture that are still around the Magic.
He didn't kind of refer to it. He said those guys are like two pieces of furniture.
Yeah. What's your take on that, Chris? I know you said earlier that you weren't lucky enough to be in one place all the time. And I was like, I always thought that was a positive, and now I'm thinking I'm just like an old recliner.
But are you asking Chris what type of furniture you are? Like, are you a couch? Are you a table? Right.
I'm the old sofa that's losing the stuffing and the pillows are falling apart and the dog sleeps on it.
To me, George, they're like French antiques.
There you go.
They just, but they age, but they get better with age.
Nice.
There we go.
Nice. Very nice.
David, I like that one. There we go.
On your business card,
that's better than the way I phrased it last night.
That
doesn't surprise me.
I called him a couple of rocking chairs myself, so I apologize for that. Chris, this has been a blast. We'd love to see you in Raleigh, and please, anytime you come down to Central Florida, come be our guest, spend some time with us. We'd love to have you back.
I'd love it. I appreciate y'all having me on. This has been really, really fun.
This has been awesome. And we got some new stories, fellas. This is fantastic. I thought that was great.
Terrific.
Good stuff.
Terrific.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Special thanks to Chris Corchiani. That'll do it for Magic Pod Squad. We'll see you next time.